Welcome to the session on understanding of various approaches adopted for managing the business of food service, like traditional approach to management, systems approach to management, management by objectives, and also about total quality management in an organization. There are many management approaches that can be applied to catering establishments in the light of ever changing management situations in this area. A thorough understanding of various aspects of organizations and structures, managerial practices, people's behavior at work, success or failure of certain organizations created awareness on the need to develop and apply managerial concepts to every area of business in order to achieve excellence in administration, production, service, marketing or development of financial and human resources. The traditional approach to management was the management model that existed in 1800s when the industries began establishing. In the traditional approach to management, productivity was treated as a purely engineering challenge. That was a time when child labor was also allowed and the workers lived in poor conditions. In the traditional approach, management decisions about the change process are taken right at the beginning of the process. The decisions are taken by a small group of powerful people, may they be managers or informal leaders. Once the decision is taken, then it is communicated to the people involved in the business and are convinced about the decisions, and the activities are expected to begin. The people who are actually affected much by the change were not involved in the decision making process. Until the decision is taken and until most of the groundwork has been done, communication about the change is kept confidential. Only after everything is planned and decided upon, all those affected by the change will be informed about the consequences. By then, they do not have much choice other than to agree, to build up resistance or to stay indifferent. Due to these indifferences and build up of resistance over time, the business fails to gain momentum and ultimately fall short of expectations. The only advantage in traditional approach to management is that it strengthens the power of management. The traditional approach to management is said to have the following features. It is based on assumptions of linearity in the marketplace. It depends on the experience of key people. Information is not readily available in this approach. This approach is intuitive and reactive in nature. It is service driven, vulnerable to turnover of key people, and is weak in accountability. Let us now understand the systems approach to management. The systems approach to management views an organization as a system composed of a number of subsystems which interact with each other and with the internal and external environments to achieve their goals. These are assumed to satisfy the needs of the environment in which the organization exists. The systems model thus focuses on an organization's general properties and processes without paying unnecessary attention to those objectives which may not be so relevant to goal achievement. From the point of view of systems approach, an organization is seen as one which receives inputs from its environment and interrelates them through various job divisions or systems to produce the products or services which flow back into the environment to satisfy the needs. Thus, in systems approach, the thought process is in terms of flow of work from one system to the other. In food service establishments, the system involves the customer placing an order for food, the order being carried to the kitchen, food being prepared by the cook, and the waiter receiving the food from the cook and carrying it to the customer. Thus, the activities of customer, waiter, and the cook are interconnected in this system. Such systems project the property of dynamism, where all parts of the system are constantly moving in addition to interacting with one another. Thus, an event occurring in one part of the system is in some way or the other transmitted through the system. This pattern of interaction is what is understood as a network or a communications system. Silverman in 1974 put forth that there are three main assumptions underlying the view of organizations as systems. They are: 1. Organizations are composed of a set of interdependent activities. 2. Organizations have needs for their survival. 3. Organizations behave and take action. The systems approach not only focuses on interconnectivity of the parts but also on interconnectivity of systems. For example, the reception and room service in a hotel are closely linked to customer food service. So, any change in one system will influence the other system without showing any visible cause of disturbance. There are basically three types of systems: closed systems, open systems, and socio-technical systems. The closed systems have a limited number of interrelating parts, and their structures are based on the assumption that the outside environment is constant for long periods of time, and therefore no influences act on the organization from outside. Even when the changes occur in the outside environment, it is assumed that those changes are slower than the internal changes, and the organizations adapt to them to bring about a state of equilibrium. The open systems are similar to closed ones, except that they take into account the interaction with the external environment. In the socio-technical system, the link between social and technical system is provided by a set of activities, interactions, sentiments which are partly molded by the technical system, which in turn molds the internal system. An example for this is the division of work developed in a system through which the tasks are assigned based on individuals' needs, and thus making the system as an interdependent socio-technical system. The system's approach to management places the following values in the managerial processes. The system model is valuable in determining how far the effects of changing one part of the system can be carried within an organization. For example, changes in technology may require re-equipping of operation theatres in a hospital, but that in no way affects the food delivery system to the post-surgery patients. However, if the electrical supply to kitchen is withdrawn so as to supply additional power to operation theatre, then the food production will be affected. It will be necessary to make some other arrangements or to make adjustments in load supply timings and to make a regular food production possible. Although organizations are always in a dynamic state, responding to changes or adjusting to the effects of a response, they are fairly stable because they have other ways of compensating for disturbances which keep them away from getting upset over the changes. The systems approach helps to establish the importance of communication systems in any organization because it is essential to interact between systems and subsystems. The systems approach helps to predetermine the requirement of a unit or subsystem in terms of skills, IQ and so on, and the staff requirement for jobs becomes easier. For example, if a food service establishment produces food for functions, then it is necessary to engage staff with artistic culinary skills, and all the staff needs to interact with each other for offering the best food service. The systems that produce an effect or result are valuable for analyzing the problems of the organizations. If something fails, then the investigation can point to the subsystem responsible for the failure and pinpoint the areas for corrective action while the other systems continue to function normally. Viewing a restaurant as an open system helps to realize changes in customer tastes which may change from fine dining to fast food service. The restaurant can then adapt its service style and menu accordingly to draw more customers. Thus, the systems approach to management helps to distinguish between the productive, maintenance, adaptive and political functions of an organization. However, this approach has some limitations as well. The limitations of systems approach can be understood this way. It is purely functional and does not focus on the behavior of people except to a limited extent through the socio-technical system. The usefulness of a system extends only to the contribution it makes to society, and this model cannot explain the prevalence of conflict at work, the presence of which is dysfunctional in nature and results from organizational goals being unable to satisfy individual goals as well. Systems approaches have been often based on biological analogies which are very misleading because they suggest that various parts of society cooperate like the parts of the body rather than compete in a struggle for survival. By concentrating solely on the structure of a system, one loses sight of individuals and the conflicts that arise in the role relationships necessary to operate the system. It is stressed that the least convincing aspect of systems approach is its inability to explain change that arises not from the system but from the interaction between motivated people. The systems model examines an organization from the point of view of the managers, as the environment is considered in terms of how it affects the problems of those in authority. Another limitation of systems approach is that the individuals within the system feel constrained by the needs of the environment and the organizational structure, which are seen as impersonal processes. This explains why organizations adapt to their environments at different rates. Moreover, in systems approach, the scope for participative techniques is limited because all decisions are made for the people working within the formal structure. Thus, although the systems approach helps in understanding how organizations function, it does so better with respect to a stable environment. In the next session, let us understand the process of management by objectives. Peter Drucker was the first person to use the term management by objectives in the year 1954 as a goal-oriented approach to management planning and evaluation. In this approach, the goals of managers were set to be achieved within a predetermined time frame. Each manager sets his own goals within the preset goals of the establishment and then works to achieve them. The significance of this approach is that a manager's ability is evaluated in addition to the performance results of the operating staff of the organization. This makes the managers more committed towards goal achievement. The characteristics of management by objectives approach, shortly called MBO approach, are superior subordinate participation in goal setting, devising methods, reviewing progress, and achieving results. The MBO approach thus involves acceptance and agreement, delegation, result evaluation to focus on success areas and identification of causes for failure. This approach leads to focused corrective action and reward systems. For success, this approach involves constant superior subordinate participation and interaction in all organizational activities. This approach is purely functional and requires a good information system in place, being totally result oriented. The MBO approach has several advantages in terms of employee satisfaction because it outlines what exactly is expected of them, as it provides measurable objectives for everyone irrespective of their level in organization. It creates a sense of belongingness and at the same time takes into account profitability, competitiveness, efficiency, and flexibility. Another method of approach that can be followed in a food service establishment is total quality management approach. Total quality management is an overall concept that promotes continuous improvement in an organization. This philosophy emphasizes a systematic, integrated, and consistent organizational effort involving all resources at hand, whether human or material, for the purpose of gaining competitive advantage in the market. Ho in 1995 stated that TQM, total, represents all people associated with an organization including suppliers and customers. Quality denotes that the requirements of customers, whether expressed or implied, are being constantly met, and management implies that the organization's managers are fully committed to the continuous improvement of all facets of the organization. Crosby in 1979, Deming in 1986, and Juran in 1988 are the other researchers associated with this approach of TQM and took it worldwide. Juran developed the ideas of quality planning, quality improvement, and quality control. The definition of quality kept changing to imply statements like performing the job rightly the first time, providing extraordinary customer satisfaction, or conforming narrowly to standards, and so on. Total quality management is said to be a journey which never ends if an organization has to succeed and survive in a competitive environment. The Japanese applied the ideology of TQM by simplifying statistical techniques for quality control, emphasizing on good data collection and presentation, Pareto diagrams for quality improvement, and cause and effect diagrams. Shingo put forth that the process has to be stopped whenever a defect occurs and the cause has to be defined to prevent reoccurrence. This idea was to locate errors in a system and prevent them from becoming defects in the product. Kondo in 1995 focused on quality and people motivation and believed in creativity, physical activity and sociability for expressing the joy of sharing pleasure and pain with colleagues. Thus, the TQM approach signifies a state of continuous dynamism within an organization aimed at providing a little extra satisfaction to the customers every time and tuning themselves continuously to changing behavior patterns. This management approach has become very successful in Japan in their industrial sector. After understanding the success of Japan, TQM is being followed in other countries too these days. To conclude, it can be said that there are a number of approaches for management. All these approaches need to be used together since change is constantly taking place in the organizational environment in which conflicts arise and the response to different changes have to be dealt with on a constant basis. Quality was earlier associated with manufacturing sector alone, but now service industry too is into the folds of quality. Food service has also earned the status of industry and hence quality service is expected from food service establishments too. Quality service can be extended by the food service establishments by adopting modern management approaches. Thank you.